Okay, today's video is about domestic violence. I'm looking at the abc13.com website. I looked at an article with the tag domestic violence. The title of this article is Bond Set at $200,000 for Man Accused of Shooting Wife Multiple Times in Southeast Houston. So that headline alone tells us a lot of things. Bond, so he was arrested. He's in jail. That's good. Accused, so he's not guilty yet. Man shooting wife, so he was a husband. It doesn't say she died, so doesn't look like a murder, but it definitely looks like aggravated assault of a family member. And he is in custody, and looks like there's definitely going to be some type of protective order in place to keep him away from her, assuming that he is able to make bail. So let's continue. So it's right here. Investigators said the husband eventually returned to the scene and turned himself in after fleeing in his sister's car. At last check, his wife is in critical condition. So this is what the investigators said. He eventually returned to the scene. So he came back, checked himself, turned himself in. It was his sister's car. Says his wife is in critical condition, so she's still alive and critical condition after gunshot wounds. So she's already looking at serious bodily injury, which would be a factor in the protective order. All right, Houston, Texas. Charges have been filed against a man accused of shooting his wife multiple times in Southeast Houston on Monday. Victor Jonathan Gallegos Betancourt, 26. Is charged with aggravated assault of a family member. So I was correct about that. Aggravated assault of a family member. And he's 26 years old, so his wife is probably about his same age, but it may be younger. So this is a very young couple. He's in possession of firearms. He was up at, Houston police were dispatched to a shooting on Scott Street, 1:20 a.m. So that's 1:20 a.m. on a Monday. Why would he need to be up unless there's some serious things going on at the house? Okay. So it says it was 1:20 a.m. So at the scene, officers found a 20-year-old woman who had been shot multiple times in her car. So she's also young. He's 6 years older than her. We don't know how long the relationship had been. Maybe if they had known each other before, maybe just 3 years earlier. Maybe looking at some statutory rape issues based on the age difference. I don't know. I don't have enough information to make that conclusion. But she said she had been shot inside a car. So it looks like maybe she was trying to leave. And in domestic violence situations, the most dangerous time for a victim is when they're trying to leave the aggressor. So that's when most of the murder-suicides happen. So this looks like could have been a murder-suicide, but that's just, it didn't get to that level. So the woman was taken to hospital in critical condition, so possibly looking at serious bodily injury. Police are withholding her identity. That's good. The man's sister, so this is the husband's sister, told police she came out of the house, which is a couple hundred yards away, and saw her brother with a gun. So it's after 1 a.m. There's shots fired. She runs outside, and she sees her brother with a gun. And then he flees in her blue Mazda 626. If he is going to later claim that he did not try to shoot his wife or committed aggravated assault, he might have a difficult time making that argument if he fled the scene. Okay, here's a tweet from the Houston Police Department. Only had 36. I noticed it only had 36 hearts and 11 replies. So I'm a little concerned that maybe domestic violence isn't getting the attention that it deserves. Investigators said Gallegos Betancourt later returned to the scene and was detained. All right, we already know that. Betancourt's bond was set at $200,000 for the aggravated assault charge. He expected to appear in court on Thursday. Okay. So let's talk about how domestic violence applies to this article. So if you don't mind, go to my website, chrismeyerlawfirm.com. Go to articles. Under the search box, type in power. Ooh, not that. I got a lot of articles out there. One I want you to click on is Power and Control. This is a model that I uploaded. It's called the Power and Control Wheel. It's also known as the Duluth model. The Power and Control Wheel helps counselors and attorneys, other medical professionals, when speaking with victims, to help them, I guess, make sense of the domestic violence. At the center of most domestic violence situations is always power and control. That's what the aggressor wants. And that is what they want, and then the how they get it is on the outside the ring. So the more like the psychological things is in the gray ring, and then the black ring is like the physical and the sexual violence, more objective. And but again, the inner ring, the gray ring, like intimidation, emotional abuse, minimizing, denying, blaming, using children, and that's like the kind of like the emotional, psychological aspect, not really the physical aspect. So the circle is gray for a reason, because it's kind of a gray area, where the outer ring, like physical violence and sexual violence, that's more of a easier to prove in court, I guess would be the way to put it. A little bit more difficult to prove emotional abuse in court, but because that's more of a subjective area. But the physical violence can be proven with, like, photos of bruises, or sexual violence with maybe a medical opinion about sexual assault, or victim's testimony. That's more objective. Okay, so let's kind of try to walk it through this article. What happened here? Okay, we definitely agree physical violence. Because he had, aggravated assault of a family member. And that's one of the prime ways that abusers try to keep power and control over the victim, is through, physical violence. Not enough information in this article to make any conclusions about sexual violence. Okay, intimidation. He made her afraid by using looks, actions, and gestures, smashing things, destroying her property, abusing pets, displaying weapons. Okay, he was definitely displaying a weapon. He was pointing it at her. He was shooting her. These type of actions also make her afraid. She was obviously leaving and fleeing in a car, so he was doing something to scare her, to make her, go into fight or flight mode. So definitely intimidation. Emotional abuse. I don't think we have enough information in this article to conclude that emotional abuse had taken place. I'm 100% confident that it did. It's just this article doesn't speak of that. Isolation. Yes, he was trying to control. Isolation is when the aggressor controls what the victim does, who they see and talk to, what they read, and where they go, limiting their outside involvement, using jealousy to justify actions. Here, I believe isolation was taking place because he did not want her to leave. In fact, he wanted her to not leave, that he was willing to take her own life to keep her from leaving that abusive relationship. So definitely isolation. He's trying to control where she goes. See, right there. Where she goes. Minimizing, denying, blaming. I don't think we really have enough information to make that conclusion. Using children, we don't have enough information. Economic abuse. Male privilege, possibly, but that would just be one of the reasons that kind of led up to why she left. Maybe he wanted her to be submissive to him, so he was trying to be the one to define men's and women's roles in the relationship. So that would be male privilege, which all goes back to power and control. All right, last one, coercion and threats. making and or carrying out threats to do something to hurt her. Absolutely, yes. I'm sure he threatened her, scared her, and that's why she wanted to leave. And in this case, he did not only make the threat, but he carried it out. Threatening to leave her, commit suicide, reported to welfare. Well, she was the one leaving him. And so I think we can safely agree that, physical violence happened, intimidation, absolutely, isolation and coercion and threats. I'm sure there are a lot more things out there that we could prove if we had more information. But I will want to conclude this. The reason I made this video is because, and why I feel it's important, is because the most dangerous times for victims is when they're trying to leave an abusive relationship. That is when most of the violence happens, like the murder, suicides, or the aggravated assaults. It's when the victim's trying to get out of a bad situation. So I hope this brought some value. I hope you learned something, and then please consider subscribing. Thank you very much.